Alright, welcome back to Higanbana no Saku Yoru ni. Part 2 of my reactionary Let's Read. I guess I can call it that. I'm not really sure what I should call this. So far the story is pretty good. It had a very strong start. It really sucked me in, and I enjoy reading it. I just hope that it will keep this consistency. That way I can just get into the game even stronger than before, and I just hope it gets even more ridiculous. But knowing this author, it's gonna get even more ridiculous. So, I shouldn't expect nothing less. Anyway, let's continue where we left off. I believe Maddie had died, and the teacher is hiding her body somewhere. The area had already begun to get fairly dark. I had used an abandoned storehouse to temporarily store Maddie's body, and after returning to the staff room, I pretended to finish work as I waited for nightfall. Since in recent years this school implemented an automated security system, there was no night guard. And so, if I waited until the middle of the night, there'd be no one there. Speaking of the security system and the like, it may have given the impression of rigorous surveillance with security cameras and whatnot, but it's nothing that extreme. There are just sensors placed all over the school's doors and windows, checking to make sure they're not broken into. I see. So it doesn't affect him whatsoever. Furthermore, they only work after the last person to leave turns them on. They only work after the last person to leave turns them on. Oh. I see. So, he has a perfect alibi in this case. And so basically, if I waited long enough, it became my chance to be completely alone in the school. So, with the school completely empty under the darkness of the late night, I dragged Maddie's body from the storehouse and took her to an outhouse behind a prefab school building. This toilet was the fairly old squatting kind, where the waste had to be pumped out from a gigantic septic tank buried underground. Ugh. Originally, the drainage system should have been changed, but at the same time this prefab was made, it seems they intended to quickly tear down the old school. But since it wasn't destroyed and was always being used, both flush toilets and squat toilets came to exist at the same time in this strange state of affairs. Someone just comes to empty the septic tank sometimes, but it's not like they completely empty its contents, much less peek at the bottom. And so if I tossed her inside this septic tank, no one should notice. That's horrible. It might be found someday, but that might be in the future after the body has turned into a skeleton, covered in shit and eaten by maggots. What kind of trace could they find on those skeletal remains? The most they could think is that she accidentally fell in while playing. I uncovered the drainage pipe for the septic tank. For a moment I winced at the horrible hot stench. And then I shined a light on Maddie's body with my flashlight and checked to make sure I didn't leave any suspicious marks. Crafty. It looks alright. It's not as if she lost her shoes along the way and left them somewhere in the school. Suddenly I noticed something was a little out of place. Where was her right sleeve button? The clothes Maddie wore had decorative buttons on the sleeves. Looking at her, her right sleeve should have had one, but it wasn't there, and her arm lay bare. Maybe I dropped the button somewhere. No, maybe she didn't have one on today to begin with. Searching the school for a single button was impossible. Yeah, you set up the security alright. Rather than worrying about that, I was aware that I had to immediately dispose of Maddie's body, and I did so without hesitation. From within the deep and unusually large septic tank came an echo with a plop sound. And after that, somewhat disagreeable sound. It too was replaced by the sound of the insects of the night and disappeared. I returned the drain's cover to the way it was before. It's fine. No one knows a thing. No one saw me. I thought as I walked briskly and returned to the staff room. If there was a teacher in the staff room who witnessed it, they'd come question me. and while this worst-case scenario filled my mind, it was impossible. The staff room was filled with silence, and aside from the annoying sound of the ticking hands of the wall clock, there was nothing there. After all, I had already checked that all the teachers aside from myself had left the school before I went and disposed of Marie. That was the natural thing to do. Yeah, but... Okay, yeah, that's true, because if he left... Wait. Alright, so he didn't set up the security system then, because he came back inside. Or I don't know if he did or not. But what if a student was to go inside for Meso-Meso-san and witness the whole thing? I don't know. Let's continue. There wasn't any need to laugh, but I was exhilarated that the annoying cleanup job was all over, and felt like a fulfilling yet senseless laugh. But the cause of my laughter wasn't just that alone. That's right. My quick thinking back in that bathroom. When that girl testing her nerve came and knocked, I thought it was over. But then, pretending to be that Meso-Meso-san I had heard about was beyond amazing. That girl will probably spread the news to the people she meets every day starting tomorrow that she met Meso-Meso-san. And then this school will certainly say that a yokai named Meso-Meso-san exists and a legend will be born. That meant basically, I was Meso-Meso-san. That's right. Leaving no evidence, I accomplished murder and escaped unseen. That meant that I stood above humans in a hierarchical pyramid. In other words, I passed my test as a killer, and now I have surpassed the so-called human stage. I'm surprised that he thinks like that. And what I earned was this name, Meso-Meso-san. Yes, I have surpassed human beings. I have become Meso-Meso-san. I have become a yokai. I am beyond humans, I murder humans, and I am feared by them. And even if I am destroyed, the ghost story of Meso-Meso-san I will leave behind me will live on in the stories spoken by the students in this school forever. Ah, I see. Yeah, that's true. It does fit his character though, since he wants to at least make a lasting impression. That was as if I had even transcended my inescapable predestined human lifespan. Meso-Meso-san, students dread me, fear me, and transmit me with your stories. How superb! Marie, when you were alive, you sacrificed your body to relieve my boredom, and in the end, you even sacrificed your life to to graduate me from humanity. What a swell kid! What an asshole! God, he's laughing too much. Meso-Meso. If someone were there to hear it, they would have heard a sad wail as if someone's heart had been torn to pieces. And it could be heard coming from behind the outhouse where Marie's body had been disposed. What? Ooh, of course it was a sorrowful cry because there was no one to hear it. No, it was a voice that couldn't forgive that there was no one there. Marie's body was now in a vat of filth where light would never shine again. However, her soul had been released and sat down across the vat's lid. What was it that made Marie sad now? Even Marie herself didn't know. It made her sad nonetheless. She had hoped she would have been given her life, only to have been given this sad fate. To be killed without having known anyone in the end. With her corpse tossed in this filthy place, no one would even know about her death. Nonetheless, the feeling the perpetrator felt in the end for her despite the many angst she had obediently followed wasn't even regret or even gratitude, but simply ridicule alone. All of these things tormented Marie. For her, eternity would continue her sorrow forever. Suddenly the insects were silent, as if telling her someone had finally come. That was someone like she was now, whose existence wasn't human. And Marie, who existed no longer as a human, had already sensed that someone and raised her head. Higanbana, right? Yeah, of course. It was Higanbana. Before, her face didn't betray any emotions. But now she held an expression that fit the true meaning of the word emotionless. Whatever emotion it was, if one were to think it might have hurt Marie's feelings, to Marie, Higanbana's cold, emotionless, expressionless form might have been the kindest. Marie might not have yet understood, but this kindness to the dead might have been a non-human formality. My condolences. If you think crying will heal your sorrow, feel free to cry. As long as you understand that those cries can no longer reach anyone's ears, that is. I thought so. It's like that, isn't it? It would be strange to hear the voice of a ghost, wouldn't it? Higanbana's words might have been harsh, but for Marie, who didn't know the logic of spirits, those words might have been necessary. Or perhaps it might have been a kindness to Marie. A cry is a sign that someone is looking for help, because until someone hears them, that person will continue crying. And for ghosts whose voices can reach no one without realizing it, they continue crying eternally, forever and ever. And when they are reduced to a spirit that cries only for crying's sake, they become seedy spirits who just want their cries to be heard by the living. And because she knew what it was like to be reduced to that sort of existence, Higanbana knew she had to use strict words with Marie. She had to tell her now while she still had ears that could listen. Higanbana-san, with this I'll be able to become Mesa-san, won't I? Higanbana is fine, Marie. And with that, Higanbana paused and stayed silent for a time. During that silence, Marie had a feeling something was wrong. If she was going to let her be Mesa-san, then she should say so without hesitation. And yet she didn't say those words. Before you label me as a liar, please listen to me. It's true that I recommended you to be Mesa-san. Everyone at the school class meeting gave their approval. They had only one condition. That condition wouldn't have been a problem at the time, but now that condition is stuck in place. A condition? What is it, Higanbana-san? Only one person is allowed to hope to become Mesa-san, you see. Eh? Not understanding what Higanbana was talking about, Marie's mouth opened in surprise. But could that be what she was saying? That there was no way of changing her hopeless situation? Her expression began to fill with sadness. When the seat for the school yokai called Mesa-san was recognized, the one who fit the position was Marie alone. Because I went to where you were, I confirmed that you had the will. And since you had the will, and because you alone had the intent, at that time there was no problem for you to become Mesa-san. Nevertheless, at the very last moment, a problem developed. The teacher, right? But what was the problem? A person aside from you has appeared who hopes to become Mesa-san. Eh? Because you were here crying with all your might, you didn't hear his voice, right? That man, with a wicked laughter in his loud voice, even reached our class with that cry. That was a very ironic twist of fate. Because to tell you the truth, his voice might have been more intense than your sadness. You know, the man who killed you, that Kanamori. He went and declared he would become Mesa-san. How did Sensei? Right after he killed you. To drive away students that arrived there, Kanamori faked being Mesa-san. That turned out splendidly. Being extremely pleased with himself, he believed himself Mesa-san. So he just declared it with a yell. I thought such a wicked voice would reach your ears, but because you were busy crying, you didn't hear it, right? For a time, Marie was dumbfounded. She had been violated by that man while she was alive, and even after taking her life, he sneered majestically down on her. And not only that, he did have to snatch away even her life after death. Even in death, Can't she free herself from that man's control? It can't be. It can't be. Ugh. Maria! For a time, all Marie could do was hide her face as she continued to shed her tears of sorrow. Whoa. Damn. That's pretty fucked up in a way. There's no need to despair, Marie. There are just two candidates for Meso-Meso-san, you and Kanamori. It's already been decided Meso-Meso-san will take the 8th rank among the school yokai. So now it can't be left empty. Either you or Kanamori, one of you will certainly take that seat. Your odds are 50%, so it's a sure thing, right? But she's dead, though. How is it? And when will it be decided? A poll at the school meeting. We 7 can vote at the school meeting. We're an odd number, so it will surely be decided. Because I'm attached to you, I intend to vote for you. But in our class, there are a lot with wicked natures. It seems there are some among us who think an evil bastard like Kanamori would be suitable for number 8. Indeed, they might have a point. Giggle, giggle, Google. Oh no. Well, if I should lose that poll, what will happen to me? There's no place where as many ripe souls gather other than a school. There's no other place in all Japan where as many evil spirits gather just to feast on the leftovers of those souls. You probably can't perceive them yet, but even this area around this mammoth school is a well-known yokai gold mine. For someone like you, since they have no respect or control, those ill-natured guys wouldn't pass up an awfully juicy soul like yours. In an instant, they'll rush you and devour you until they've sucked out your bone marrow. Can't you imagine it? That school building's shadow, or on the other side of the thicket. I've heard those bad ones with quite an appetite have formed groups. Marie was startled, and while she saw what Higanbana was saying, she didn't see anything slip out from the night's darkness. But, even without seeing them, she was certain those wicked beings existed. He will be alright for now. Your spirit is still being looked after by the one and only Higanbana. On school premises, there isn't a fool who would dare attack someone from that school in the care of a school yokai from the 7 seats. Not to mention, I teach them what cruelty is. Giggle, giggle, Google. Whoa! Higanbana giggled with an eerie expression that was neither flattering nor trustworthy. God damn Ryukishi artwork. That should have greatly frightened Marie, but Marie couldn't see it. She was more frightened of the things appraising her that hid in the veil of darkness. Who is more appropriate for the title of Meso-Meso-san, you or Kanamori? I'll guarantee your safety until that's decided. But after I can't guarantee anything, can I? It's alright. If those guys eat you, or if the Reapers take you and your judgment is settled in Hades, either way it's all over. No matter how much you might have wanted to live with that feeble brain of yours, it will be snatched away in an instant. Either way, see? Higanbana-san is only protecting my existence like this for now. Is that right? That's right. Although after this, don't know if it's safe to say. What is it? Higanbana, with a cruel smile, put her lips to Marie's ear, and as to lick her earlobe, she spoke. There are many who think you look delicious. Not only just that group out there, but I do too. Oh shit. Because I think if you don't become Meso-Meso-san, before they can sink their teeth into you, I think I'll eat you first myself. What she said couldn't have been just a joke. Respecting mutual rights of others was logic from the human world. In the world of non-humans, rank was everything. Everything was survival of the fittest. And if Higanbana wanted that, those words told her that she could, now, in this very moment, make it into reality. Thinking that there's nothing to be afraid of even after death, that is human stupidity. Even after death, the world is still filled with things to be afraid of. And Marie, who has already once died through the extremely cruel barrier of death, that reality where she could have lived without excessive cruelty, where she could have known no fear, never came. But Marie reined in her fears and spoke in a gentle voice. If it comes to that, then if Higanbana-san desires that, I think that would be alright. Have you already given up? That's not it. It would be in gratitude. Because Higanbana-san is protecting me, I'm allowed to exist as I am now, aren't I? Because to Higanbana-san, who gave me time to cry for my own death, I think I must be grateful for that. Ah, good girl. For Maria, Higanbana's reason for approaching her might have even been just to kill and eat her. Even so, the warm words that offered to welcome her among Higanbana's kind was worthy of gratitude. Even Kanamori, who demanded compensation in the form of those immoral acts for protecting her from those bullies, had certainly never offered her to be his friend or companion. Even if Marie didn't put those emotions into words, Higanbana read them. Huh. Higanbana laughs, but Marie doesn't see her expression. If that happens, then your soul will be delicious. To be a suitable school yokai, you'll need a bit more wickedness and cruelty, you know. That's alright, because I said I wanted to take my revenge as I am now. I'm capable of that kind of cruelty. And with that revenge, if you don't become Meso-Meso-san, you'll be in a tough spot, won't you? And even if you have your revenge, it might just be an inconvenience for that man, right? Maria once again began to cry. From that man's shadow, who she couldn't even escape from in death, feeling sadness, bitterness, and rage, all she could do was jumble her various emotions. Even her wail of agony reached no one as it was swallowed by the veil of darkness. Marie, school yokai's expectations, and the like, didn't matter one bit to the still living Kanamori. But even so, Kanamori hadn't yet completely cut all his connections to Marie's death. Talk about Marie and Moria not coming home last night quickly turned into an uproar. Uh-oh. Was it an accident, or did she get involved in some trouble? The last anyone saw of the ever-lonely and friendless Marie was at the school that day. As for what happened after school, it was anyone's guess. Police were looking for information and posting flyers with drawings of what Marie wore that day on bulletin boards here and there. Making sure not to overlook any witnesses, they posted them all around town. The police even came to question the homeroom teacher, Kanamori. Kanamori said he didn't know what happened after school, and the police departed feeling satisfied. Thanks, police. It even became an urgent topic at the staff meeting, and as a precaution in case of a second incident, there was recent talk about at-the-school groups or bodyguards and the like. At first, those topics made Kanamori's heart race, but after a day or two he became confident. Because the police investigation hadn't found Marie's corpse, it was focused on what happened at the school. He began to feel he had completely slipped away from that line of investigation. He was asked by a child from his class where Marie could have disappeared to, and Kanamori refused as if in jest and said, Could it be the curse of Meso-Meso-san, I wonder? Oh, of course not. I can't believe I just said that. Let's make this our little secret, okay? What a smooth bastard. As expected, the students took those words all too well. Having her treated as a victim of Meso-Meso-san, the school yokai everyone is crazy about lately came as an added bonus. In school, the rumors about Meso-Meso-san ran wild, and a new school ghost story began to take hold. With that in mind, Kanamori started to believe more and more that he was Meso-Meso-san. It was that kind of day. Interesting. After school, on his way to the staff room, In the middle of the empty hallway, suddenly he fell. Hmm? When he fell, it was as if something had caught his elbow. It tore his skin and made him bleed. It wasn't a serious injury, but he pressed a tissue to his elbow so it wouldn't stain his shirt. Oh my, Kanamori-sensei, are you alright? You're hurt, called out the vice principal who saw him by chance. Ah, how embarrassing. I must have bumped into something when I fell. I probably just slipped on a puddle a student neglected to wipe up or something. Kanamori said that, even though he knew more than anyone that he hadn't lost his footing like that. While he smoothed things over with the vice principal, he looked at the hall, and he was left doubting he could have slipped on something. Sensei, you seem to be bleeding quite a bit. It's seeping through your tissue. You're alright. How annoying. Perhaps I should head to the infirmary and get myself patched up. You do that. Oh, nurse. Kanamori-sensei seems to have hurt himself. Would you take a look at him? Conveniently, from the other side of the hallway the school nurse appeared. Oh my, are you alright? Your elbow. The injury itself wasn't a big deal, but he didn't want the blood to stain his clothes. Kanamori thought as much, and he calmly headed to the school infirmary. The inside of the infirmary was filled with the smell of disinfectant, and feeling the pain from the cotton wool soaked in that disinfectant brought back memories of my elementary school days. It was nostalgic. Before I knew there was something greater than being human, in those times I always felt looked down upon by those around me, not wanting to be looked down upon, and wanting to look down on others. In those times I bottled up my aggressions against them. And by looking down on Marie, I finally felt as if I had relieved myself from that complex. I didn't think I wanted to be a killer. But if this purge didn't free me from my complex, for the rest of my life, how long would I have to live in despair? If I thought about it, as for how long I could go on living, if I supposed Marie's life was ended for someone else's amusement, I thought it would be natural for them to go on living, seeking new ventures in life. Like the different links in the food chain, I was the predator, Marie was the prey. That was all there was to it. If I didn't eat her, then in the future she'd be eaten by someone else. And so I ate her early on, and in a deeply compassionate way reset her existence. Although even in her next life she'll probably be eaten again. That girl is just that hard to teach after all. Wow. Interesting. I kind of like this perspective on how human interactions are between, others and whatnot too. This game really focuses more on that. Basically, we just can't help but hurt each other or take advantage of each other. Kanamori is doing the same thing. I mean, basically he's been bullied, so he might as well bully others to make himself feel good. That's a natural emotion. While I was immersed in my fantasies, I had a somewhat large band-aid put on and ended my treatment. When I mentioned my thanks and stood up to leave, ting, 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 tink, a small series of sounds reached my ears. Something the matter? No, I heard something just now, as if something fell over. Kanamori saw a small white thing had fallen on the floor and picked it up. It was made of plastic or something, and it looked like a small button. Ooh, shit. Even saying it was a button, it wasn't even a millimeter in diameter, but he understood it must have been an accessory or for something. But when he turned his thoughts as to what it might have fallen from, he looked up above the medicine cabinets, and he understood what it was. That was something particularly out of place in this infirmary, a Western doll. It couldn't hide its worn-out state from its degradation over time, but there was no doubt it certainly wasn't something cheap. I compared the shape of the object I had just picked up with the doll many times, and I sensed it was certainly a button from this doll's clothes. This doll's button probably fell off. Oh, is that so? I'll have to sew that back on after you leave, because they say this child is the master of this infirmary after all. Master? This cute doll? Kanamori stood on his toes and took down the doll that sat atop the medicine cabinets looking down on them. That doll was uniquely Western and had a vaguely cold air to it. Kanamori had politely called the doll cute, but in his mind he thought of how it wasn't cute but eerie. Wow, it's Higanbana, isn't it? It's crazy. Yeah, but I've also heard about it from the former nurse, you see. She said this doll was here long before she started working, and it had been watching over the infirmary just like it is now. How absurd. Isn't it something some student lost? Well, I wouldn't think there's a student who would bring such a splendid doll and simply forget about it. Oh, that's right. They say this doll is a cursed doll. And the students are afraid of it, you see. Ha ha ha. So is this one of the school's 7 mysteries? Now that I think of it, the doll in the infirmary dances in the middle of the night. Or so I've heard from one of the students. I see. So they were talking about this doll, eh? Long ago, a doll that belonged to a girl who died in this infirmary took her spirit and became a yokai or some such. No matter what school you go to, there are plenty of stories like that. Oh, that's right. I don't know who named that doll, but sure enough, it has a name. They say it's called Higanbana. Oh shit. Higanbana. It's not a particularly fortunate name, is it? Indeed, it just might suit this strange doll perfectly. However, isn't it wrong to be scaring the students by keeping that kind of doll there as a decoration? Well, there's also talk of a curse put on those who throw that doll away. It's not that I believe in curses, but since it's been watching over students in this infirmary for a long time, I'd feel kinda bad, you know. She sits there, making sure the injuries of the students who come here don't get worse, and she protects them. Is that so? But where does this button go, I wonder? Ah, here. I'll sew it on later. See? It's a right sleeve button. Why is it a right sleeve button? Isn't that's the same as... Didn't Maddie had a button on her right sleeve? Right sleeve button. Those were casual words, but it was something Kanamori wanted to forget and yet could not. Bits and pieces from his disposed memory began to stir. Yes, a regret from that night he disposed of Marie's corpse. It was an uncomfortable feeling. Just before disposing of Marie's body, when shining a light on the body to make sure nothing was missing, he certainly saw Marie's right sleeve had been torn. That night his attention was invariably divided, and so he didn't see how a single button mattered. He ignored it. But even so, it still left him with a bad feeling. That memory revived in his mind with a yelp, as if a small rock had gotten inside his sock. This doll's torn off button. If it hadn't been the right sleeve, he wouldn't have noticed anything. Even so, it had to be the right sleeve's button. The same as the one torn from Marie's clothes, her right sleeve button. At that moment, Kanamori felt as if the eerie Western doll named Higanbana was sneering at him. What a foolish man. There are only 2 things that can evaporate or disappear from this world. Know what they are? Huh. What are you talking about? The preconception that there was no way a doll could talk to me blurred with that question. The things that disappear. Water and grateful souls. Just these 2. She laughed at her own joke sarcastically, but the doll quickly froze her laughter and continued. Are you looking for Marie's right sleeve button? What is that button made of? Water? Grateful souls? There's no way a button could be made of water or souls. If it were top quality, it might have been made from shells. Or if it was cheap, then it'd be plastic at best. Right. It's made of things that aren't water or souls. So there's no way it can disappear from this world. It can dissolve or evaporate. So it must still be where it was dropped, right? It'll be where it was dropped, always. Until it's found by someone, it'll be there forever, won't it? Oh shit. What does that mean? Does that mean Maddie went to the infirmary? I don't know. The meaning of those words began to pain me. It was an inconvenience that most people would have wanted to quickly forget. And until today, I had forgotten it, that bad feeling I had about Maddie's button. But no matter how I wanted to forget it, the button itself wouldn't disappear. It was surely there, even now, where it was dropped, and until someone picks it up, it's waiting there even now. That's right. I mustn't forget about that button that came off her right sleeve. There was no way the button was torn off from the beginning. If she were a crude boy, she wouldn't care at all about a single button torn from her clothes. But she was a girl. If a button was torn off, she would have certainly put it back on again. Even Maddie was the methodical type. She wouldn't go through her daily routine with a button missing from her right sleeve. So that button must have been torn off on that day. Kanamori-sensei, is something the matter? No. Thank you very much. I just remembered I have some business to take care of. Sorry. Now if you'll excuse me. Already the foundation for my mental state and sense of security were gone. If I continued aimlessly like this, sometimes someone will find that button. Because the police have long known about the clothes Maddie wore the day she disappeared. If by chance it winds up in their hands, they'll probably realize it belongs to Maddie's clothing. What the hell am I doing being so carefree and letting this critical situation go? And where did that button fall off? Where I strangled her, that place. The old school building's bathroom, in that stall. No, and yet, when I left there, I was sure I didn't leave any traces behind. But that was when I was in a hurry and only looked with a glance. I don't think I cared that much if a grain-like fallen button escaped my sight. I'm sure of it. It's there. It's in there. In order to not be seen by anyone when I entered the old school building and stayed there until I could be completely satisfied, all I could do was hold back my impatient mind and wait. Someone's gonna come in too. Once he goes, anyway, to the old bathroom. In the infirmary, the nurse was still finishing up the day's work. Then she felt as if she heard a girl's laughter. Thinking there might still be students at school, she turned around. And the Western doll quietly sitting atop the medicine cabinets caught her eye. Obviously, there was no way Higanbana could laugh. She was a doll after all. The nurse might have been a little tired. She thought after going home today, she would quickly get to bed. Giggle, giggle, Google. Which one is the better mesa-mesa-san? That'll be a sight, won't it? Waiting until a vote is boring. Don't you think it'd be better if the two involved decided it themselves? I must be tired. I think I'll call it a day and head out. Higanbana giggled as she imagined what was beginning to unfold from this point forward. Of course, it was impossible for that voice to reach the nurse's ears. Now then, Maddie, Kanamori, please show me who is more fitting, because everyone in our class are also hoping for something more interesting than a vote. This is gonna be interesting. What is up with this development? Are you staying here, Kanamori-sensei? It won't be long until tomorrow, you know. Thank you very much, Vice Principal. I'm almost done here, so please let me stay here a bit longer. I understand, but please start finishing up. Because if you get too many overtime hours, we might even get a complaint from the union executive office. Oh, he's getting paid to stay over? Like, he's getting paid to stay overnight. I mean, over school day, whatever. What an asshole. Ha 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 ha. I get paid after hours for murdering people and finding buttons. Ha 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 ha. Well, I apologize, but I'm going to have to excuse myself for the day. Since I think you will be the last one out, please set up the security system. Also, if it's not on by 11 o'clock, the security company will come check on it if you don't call them. Ooh. Be really careful, please. Interesting. Yes, I'm aware of that. I had forgotten about that. Although I hadn't planned on taking that long to check that bathroom, but if I end up bumping heads with the security company, there'll be all kinds of trouble. Tonight, Kanamori had been more discreet than ever before. Even more discreet than the day he killed Marie. Jeez, what the hell is up with this Terminator BGM? Oh, never mind. After seeing the vice principal cross the campus with his own eyes, heeding the vice principal's advice, he called the security company to let them know he'd be working late that night. Clever. This is perfect. Now this time as well. With no one else except himself in the school late at night, no one would pay him a visit. Someone will, in the old bathroom. Don't be stupid. So he left the staff room, and before heading to the old school building, he hid himself and watched to see if anyone was lurking in the school. Naturally, no sounds caught his attention. Only the cries of insects infested the old building. When he allowed himself a breath, it sounded as loud as a storm in his ears. Outside the window was pure darkness, because inside he had a light outside of the glass and the hallway was in darkness. But the interior of the hallway reflected itself back again like a mirror. So immediately after seeing that, he could see himself being reflected. Inside that massive school building, he was alone. In a day the school bustles with many students and teachers. Doubtlessly, it was forming its own society. But that world was a different world separated from this world. It might even be said that the school occupied a different dimension. In that dimension, now he was alone. Society is order made by the many. And without numbers, there's only one. It is a society no more. In other words, at this moment, in a separate school dimension, freed from the morals of so-called society, the world was his alone. If he ran in the halls during the day, he'd be scolded by his pupils. And if the vice principal saw him, he'd probably made example of in front of the students, because no running in the halls is one of those rules of society. However, this school in the depth of the night has now been set free from that society. In other words, the rules created by society can no longer reach him. After all, this is a world where he alone exists. And even if he ran ahead at full speed, there wasn't anyone to worry about. Even in this moment, he was the lord of this world. He had transcended his insignificant existence as a single man in the larger society. The more he thought about it, the more his impatience about quickly finding Marie's button began to dissipate. He began to feel surprised at how frustrated and impatient he was moments ago. What is up with this superiority complex? If he had horns, if he had wings, then now more than ever he lengthened and grew them, unfolded and extended them. It had started as a laugh only in his mind, but then he realized even if that laugh escaped his mouth, in this world no one else could hear it. And so Kanamori, in an insanely wicked voice from the depths of his soul, howled with laughter as he headed to the former school building. However, the moment he stepped foot into the old school building, his demonic confidence retreated. It was replaced with a discretion as if his ruthlessness had frozen in ice. It even froze his inner demon. If he turned the lights on in the old school building, he might be seen by someone in the neighborhood. And so without turning on the lights, he illuminated his path with the thin glow of a flashlight. The frail light illuminated the world of pure darkness. But like an illusion, the length of that hallway seemed to continue all the way into the horizon. From the inside, all the doors had been closed and locked with the utmost care. And with this, he had completely severed himself from the world. He was torn and isolated from that school world. In other words, he was in a second world divided far away from the human world. If you've gone this far from the human world, you'll get closer to the spirit world, won't you? Whoa. He felt as if he heard the voice of the doll whose button fell in the infirmary again. Of course, there was no way a doll could talk, so it was impossible for something that foolish to really happen. And yet this world of the former school building and the human world where dolls couldn't speak were two vastly different places. Maybe here, in this old school, lies a world where even dolls can talk? That's absurd. He had wanted to laugh, but after he dared let it pass his mouth, he felt as if the power he had earlier had been cast aside like a lie. It was something ingrained in his mind since childhood. He remembered unfounded rumors regarding the strange world of the school at night, and now they began to slowly work their effect on his mind. He wanted to say how absurd it was again. This time, as he tried to say the words, they were caught like a lump in his throat. He thought saying them might cause him to remember that emotion, horror. So he swallowed them back down. Because the former school building was getting quieter and quieter, his desires to deny that emotion amplified more and more. There might have been a leak in a water pipe somewhere. Yeah, 'cause that fucking sound's annoying. That strange sound he hadn't noticed during the day filled the bathroom. He had wanted to run and turn on the lights inside, but he held back his desperation, and he illuminated the area with a thin beam of his flashlight. Perhaps that stalled door where I killed Marie is still shut. That place where Marie's sobbing meso came from. In the world in the daytime, this might have been a laughably cheap ghost story. But in this world, with about as much likelihood as a coin landing on tails, it held the chance of that horror becoming reality. Even though all he had to do was shine his light on that bathroom stall, he hesitated. Damn it! The hell am I afraid of? Marie's ghost isn't something to be afraid of. It's that fallen button that police might find that's important. How stupid. With a senseless grin, he tried to boost his morale. As he shined his flashlight toward that stall, it was like he thought it would be. The stall hadn't been closed or anything. Naturally, there wasn't anyone inside. And there wasn't any crying voice sobbing meso. So that's it? He thought while checking it inside in relief. But in doing so, the fears he had restrained seemed as if they were about to resurface once again. He resisted. In any case, he set out to examine the bathroom stall. In the stall was a Japanese-style squat toilet. Oh God. The moment he saw it, his hair stood on end as he felt the memories of that day resurface in his mind. Once, the stall was an immoral place where I performed countless atrocities with Marie. Even though I remember those long days when I committed those indiscretions, they were all completely blotted out by my memory of that sole act, that day when I killed Marie. Because that Marie that revived in my mind wasn't the one that stimulated me. It was when she carelessly tumbled to the ground unaware of her indecency after I strangled her. When I remembered her body, I felt just a slight sense of regret float from the bottom of my heart. But I quickly disposed of it, because if I allowed myself to entertain such thoughts, I thought all I was doing was acknowledging my own weakness. Take my daily meals, for instance. If I had came to regret every single animal or plant I have eaten before, I wouldn't even been able to eat a slice of bread. And that's my attitude towards Marie. We're firmly placed in the different levels of the hierarchy. And I'm placed in a higher position than many on the pyramid. And that's all there was to it. So things ended up as they should, and I don't need to regret anything. Just like there are no humans who shed tears of sadness from eating bread. Such stupid thoughts. Anyway, I have to see if that button is here. I felt that if I didn't scold myself, I would be sucked more and more into my delusions. Already, it seemed like the air of this different dimension in the school started to eat away at me. I had to quickly pull myself out of this strange world, or else I wouldn't be able to return from it. A sixth sense that had molded since childhood warned me so. I must hurry, but I had to relentlessly and carefully search. I didn't care if it was a toilet stall, and I crawled down on all fours and searched if I were licking the floor. On top of that urine-color stained floor that eternally released its foul odor, I couldn't find the button that fell off Marie. Under normal circumstances, I might have thought that meant it wasn't here. But somehow I was convinced. I had no proof, but I had no doubt the button was here. It has to be here. It's not on the floor. Did I miss a spot? The moment I strangled Marie to death, the stall door was closed. Now the door was open, so I could crawl around the stall. Maybe there's something on the inside of the door, or possibly the outside, even though I thought there was no way the button could be in such a place. I thought that if I didn't recreate the same stall from that day, I wouldn't be able to free myself from my delusions. So I carried out the first task in recreating it. I shut the door from the inside. Because it would naturally swing open if it wasn't locked, I locked the stall door. I caught a quick glimpse of the opposite side of the shut door, but the button hadn't stuck to it or anything like that. Then where's the button? Marie died here. She was killed here. And it was here that she fell. It was then that the button was torn off. I hadn't seen it, but somehow I knew. It must have been then. Then the flashlight's beam reflected with a flash. Covering the top of the toilet paper was a silver-colored dispenser. From the rough use by students, it had been squashed somewhat, but it seemed like it could still fulfill its role in conveniently cutting larger sheets of toilet paper. And, above that paper dispenser, there was a pebble that looked like a white teardrop. It's here. This is it. I slowly took it between my thumb and forefinger. There was no mistake. This is it. It's that button. It was the very button that had been torn from Marie's right sleeve. That day Marie had the life squeezed out of her, and when she was exhausted, those hands of hers that fought against my choking arms dropped with a thump. And then that button somehow caught and tore off on the paper dispenser. That's how the button got here. I found it. I found it. I desperately resisted the urge to howl in laughter. I could think about this button as long as I wanted later. There's no need to overthink this. All I need to do is just drop it in the toilet and flush it like so. As the water flushed, the world of silence that had come to greatly haunt me was torn apart by its roaring sound. And in an instant, it swallowed up the button, and its form had forever disappeared from the world above. Just as the doll said, because that button can't disappear, it'll probably remain in this world. But no one could find something like a tiny button that fell into the sewer. That would be harder than finding a bead in a desert. And so this was the same as sending it into the eternal abyss. Basically, this perfectly erases any trace of the murder I committed. I felt the unease from that day that remained in my mind slowly clear away. And as the roaring flushing sound that had torn the silence began to slowly quiet down, I began to rise to where I was once before. I once again began to take back my place as a being that surpassed humans. Now, even holding back laughter was painful. I felt like I was going to burst out laughing right here. No, shouldn't I laugh? This is a world separate from the human world, and so I am alone. Isn't this world mine alone? And so I didn't hold back. My laughter cut through the silence, and once again I exposed my existence that was more than human. It was the greatest feeling. Until now, I had never laughed with such joy once in all my life. And after laughing to my heart's content, after I had laughed so much, I was in pain from the lack of oxygen. I needed to breathe. I set out to leave the bathroom stall. I went to unlatch the lock. At that moment, my finger had touched the lock, repelled as if it had been struck by static electricity. No, that's not the right way to put it. It wasn't as if my finger had been hit by static electricity. It felt as if when touching it, it was better to say I had been struck with static electricity. Because from the other side of the door, I heard the voice of a girl sobbing meso meso. All the hairs on my body stood on end. Oh shit! And I felt a huge presence pass through me from head to toe. And so I stopped breathing, as if I were checking if that meso meso was an auditory illusion. But if it was real, there was no need for that kind of confirmation, because there was only one entrance to the old school building. And after I entered, I quickly locked it. There's no way someone could come in here. There's no way there were any students hiding out at this hour. And there's no way that someone is out there. Because basically hiding my breathing and checking was in itself confirmation that something was happening. But because I had to do that, does that mean that I clearly heard that meso meso just now? I've got to calm down, check my ears. But that presence of that sobbing cry from the other side of the door, it won't go away, it won't leave. I'm just hearing things. It's a hallucination. I got too excited and went and heard something that isn't there. That's it. This has to be remnants of my humanity. This has to be those damn pangs of guilt. Surely, since I came back to the place where I murdered her, I must be feeling guilt from killing Marie. And I must be hallucinating Marie's ghost inside my mind. In other words, what's out there is my desire to blame myself, my good conscience. After all. You there, please listen to my pitiful story. Oh shit. That wasn't a voice in my head or a hallucination. There were words that reached my ears. That voice, it was none other than Marie's. Marie? Is that Marie? Meso meso, hic. Whoever it was only cried. But that voice heaving with sobs answered my question. But on that day, I surely killed Marie and tossed her corpse in a septic tank. There's no way Marie could be here. No way she could still be alive. Now, Kanamori was in a strange world of the former school building in the depth of night. He unconsciously came to realize the logic of the spirit world. Because without being limited to the reasoning of the human world where something killed no longer exists, he understood that on the other side of the door, the dead Marie was there. He understood. In other words, dead Marie ghost was out there. He understood the truth that cannot exist. That crying voice from the other side of the door. No, while Marie's ghost continued its pitiful cries, she began to condemn him with her words. You forced me to do horrible things, and then you killed me in the end. That was the cruelest of all. Killing you was the right thing to do. Are you stupid? That's the only thing I did. Think about it. If the police found out, it was the right thing to do. If I had let you live, you would have probably run to a police box with those legs of yours. Isn't that right? I wouldn't do something like that. After all, if I talked then, Sensei would distribute that embarrassing videotape. Videotape, huh? Ha ha ha. Did you really think something like that could be a threat to you? That's about how useful it was. But, but, but I wanted to return to a normal life. Because if you let me return to that normal life, I would keep what you did a secret, and I would have protected it. Ho ho! You could say anything with that mouth of yours, you say. You would have said that, and then that day after school you would have gone to the police. Isn't that right? And if you asked the police for help, you would have done as they said and settled things immediately. The only place where nothing changes when people ask for help are in TV dramas. But Sensei has the videotape. If I broke that promise, then Sensei would... Even a ghost here is so... pathetic. Truly pathetic. Did you really think that kind of tape would compare to tipping off the police? The police aren't stupid, you know. Before I released that tape, they'd arrest me. I'd be arrested before I could edit myself out. And they'd go in my house and seize the tapes, my equipment, everything would be evidence. If you truly believe that tape was blackmail material even after your death, then I congratulate you. Even in death you make me laugh. That's how stupid you were, even in your last days. Audible laughter. It can't be. It can't be. Marie's sobbing was tinted with even more sorrow. That you believed it could be used against you. I delightfully congratulate you from the bottom of my heart. Maybe you read too much manga, and you went and absorbed such useless knowledge, and in your foolishness you probably felt satisfied in the world you created. If you even had one friend to ask for help, you would have probably realized such a stupid mistake right away. But your worthlessness complex prevented you from making any friends. This world, you see, is society. Society is made up of relationships from person to person. And you, being denied those relationships, damn, pronunciation is horrible today, and being left out, truly became the leftovers of society. And because of that, you truly believe that worthless tape could have been used as blackmail material. How sad. As your homeroom teacher, I feel for you from the bottom of my heart. When I met with you and your parents and even advised you to make friends, you had nothing but excuses. To think I thought you realized it on the brink of death. Even after death you still don't get it, do you? Are you saying I was stupid? Oh, I see. Then I give you the words straight from my mouth. You're an idiot. A blithering idiot. Even though you're a child, you pretend to take a philosophical view on life, and you turned your status as a dropout in society into a virtue. And you felt it was too much trouble to even ask for help with your sorrows and dropped out of society. Wow, that's deep. Holy shit. You falling out of the very bottom of the pyramid of human society. That can't be. Those terrible things I made you experience. That's right. That was my private lesson, you see. When confronted with a problem that can't be solved by yourself, what do? That's right. The answer was to ask someone for help. If you had asked your friends or your family, you might have had a chance at getting the right answer. But you didn't make friends. You didn't even open up to your family, regardless of the instruction I gave you. And class time just ran out, you see. It's not like time has run out. I didn't ask for help, but even though I didn't make friends, and I might have been wrong in not asking for help, but I fought. I fought against you. As I commanded you became like a cat or like a dog, you threw away your human dignity. And I will admit you did struggle somewhat, but that sort of thing has no value whatsoever. This resulted in that. Oh, the result matters, blah blah blah. You drove your opponent into a frenzy, and then you were really strangled to death, and your body was even thrown into a cesspool. Aside from those clumsy results, how would you like me to evaluate you? I can only say you're an idiot. No points. You get a 0. That's what they call reckless courage, you see. Rather than that kind of courage, you should have had the courage to call the police. And you didn't even do that. What you are now is the result of that. And what part of that are you saying I should praise? They said that the only thing that can cure stupidity is death, but apparently they were wrong. It seems even in death stupidity can't be cured. Would make more sense. Whoa! Damn! Whoa! Maria voice. Even Maria's soul after death was humiliated. That's pretty deep. Who decided departed souls were stronger than the living? There is no such rule. At the moment of death, at the moment one leaves life behind, their existence is inferior. The slight hope Maria held, that illusion that if she stopped being human, she could gain the strength to have her revenge after death, began to crumble. Because Maria understood now. This had nothing to do with whether or not she could become Mesomesa-san. Her power to avenge herself, no, the power to fight. It was the power to understand something, to do something. As much as she believed that if she became something other than human, she could have her revenge on the one responsible. In that kind of position, there was no power she could fight with at all. The ones with the power to fight are strong, or among humans. No, to fight is to live. When she gave up living, she had lost forever. Because she had already died, regardless if Maria understood what it meant to truly fight, what it meant to truly have courage. She was above the requirements to fight in that arena. The requirement to fight. That was to be alive. Her homeroom teacher might have snatched her life from her, but listening to Higanbana offer to turn her into a yokai, that if she became a yokai she could rejoice in vengeance. In the end, it was truly pointless and foolhardy. At the very least, if she had the courage to ask someone for help, she would surely still be alive. Still alive, fighting, perhaps even winning. That might have been her way out of this fate. She gave it up, and so her fate resides eternally within this man, without anywhere to run. This way, even after death, she would eternally continue being shamed. Ooh, too cruel. Maria's voice no longer became in sobs. They could only be described as wails. They weren't offensive as if to curse him either. Fixed with the fate of eternal shame, without fighting it, she could only cry in subjugation with her lowly self. It wasn't that Maria thought her existence until now was sad, or even had regret. The thought that kept crossing her mind that if she could go back to that day, she wouldn't have been violated like this. She became a victim, lost her courage and will to fight. She could no longer muster any strength. Nonetheless, she had left her will to live behind, and she became to believe in the daydream of achieving her revenge by relying on others. Does that kind of person even have the right to live? Death was expected. She didn't have any right to live, and so being killed was the obvious result. In other words, it was inevitable. Smack! So you finally realized what kind of horrible existence you have. I see. I'm glad I gave you these supplementary lessons. Finally, those lessons were even able to teach you something. I can tell from your cries of regret. So perhaps we should end our class session. Kanamori reached out from the lock to the stall door that trapped him within. When he touched the lock, there was a tap sound, and that greatly terrified Marie. But what are you doing? I'm ending class. Haven't you learned the importance of life just now? If so, then you should start over in your next life. Know what I mean? Eh? What do you mean? The door unlocked with a crack. When she heard that sound, Marie let loose a short scream. The lock was gone. If Kanamori opened the door, he would expose the Marie that was out there to his own eyes. For Medie, the terrifying man who killed her would once again appear before her. For Medie, the living Kanamori that lay beyond that door was still terrifying. Even up until now, she never even had the courage to look him in the eyes. But Kanamori already had the courage to look directly at the dead Medie's ghost. After all, those fearsome spirits have already been wiped away from the world of human reason. Kanamori knew. On the divide between before one is robbed of life and after death, the souls of the dead can only stand in afterlife. The miserable life will lead to a miserable afterlife. Even though she had died, Medie was still Medie. Alive or dead, she realized it didn't matter which side of the divide she was on. But Medie realized that all too late, because reduced to a lowly spirit, now here she was. Well, since you can't rest in peace, it's time you showed me your wretched form. No! Don't open it! It's useless, you see. With the cruelty of an executioner dropping the bladed edge of a guillotine, Kanamori threw open the door. It was a bizarre scene. Even though he had opened the door inside the stall, he was still there in that stall. But Medie's figure was there, with the same appearance as the day. Wait, what? Hold on. Even though he had opened the door from inside the stall, he was still there in that stall. Okay. But Medie's figure was there, with the same appearance as the day he killed her, with the same right sleeve missing a button, with a wound left on her throat from where he strangled her to death. Medie uttered a frightened squeal and backed off, but it was already a small stall as it was. With no place to run to, her back was quickly up against the wall. She began to tremble, and as she quivered in fear of Kanamori, her eyes pleaded that he not come any closer. Truly, you're a hopeless dunce. There is no test worthy of a student as bad as you. In your next life, be sure to think about what I taught you. I'll be praying that you get a more worthwhile existence. What do you intend to do, Sensei? Since you appeared before me like this, it seems to me that you haven't fully realized that you've been killed. I'm saying that in order for you to fix things in your new life, Sensei is going to once again strangle you to death. No! No! That state of panic spilled over from when Medie was alive. The pain she felt when pinned to that wall of death was something only the dead could understand. That fear in knowing she would feel it once again could only be imagined from the beyond bizarre expression left on her face. No, I don't want to. I don't want to be killed. If you don't want to, then what will you do? Kick his ass! You should ask for help, but there is no one here to help you. You're all alone here, you see. So, what will you do? As Medie cried and screamed, she grabbed Kanamori. As Kanamori's throat was gripped by both her thin arms, Kanamori's hands also grabbed hold of Medie's throat. Yes, fighting now is correct. Even if it's just for this moment, it's right, you see. But in your incompetence, you have no choice to defeat me alone. Perhaps I should end your demonstration. Even in death, you see, you're a fool. Even as they both gripped each other's throats, the difference in power was clear. Against Kanamori's grip that squeezed her like a vice, Medie's strength started to fade. Before she knew it, her arms no longer sought to choke Kanamori's throat, but instead changed to feebly resist the force of Kanamori's arms. How many challenges are there in this world that you can't win alone? In order to surmount them, people borrow power from society. In your final days, you ignored that, and you've become once again to repeat that mistake. If you can't rest in peace, then feel free to visit me as many times as you like. Over and over again. I'll make you remember the pain of death. I'll strangle you to death forever and ever. In Medie's mind, the fear and pain from when she was driven to the border between life and death returned. And with her dead body, she moaned with the pain of her neck being crushed. Now you will die again! Medie Moria! Good. Snap! It was something he hadn't felt with his hands when he had strangled Maddie to death before. At that moment, Maddie's body jerked and shuddered, and as she stopped moving, her neck slanted diagonally. Ha 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 ha! Without loosening his grip, he continued to strangle her as he laughed like a devil. At that moment, a voice that couldn't have been there came in an echo. Game, set. I see. As for which of you is more suitable to be Meso-Meso-san, clearly, it's been decided. What? Looking up at who the voice belonged to, above the railing between the bathroom stalls, looking down on him, sat the Western doll he had seen in the infirmary. For Kanamori, who could now understand the existence of non-humans, this sort of thing didn't seem eerie. He thought she was surely a witness to his formal duel with Marie. And so he grinned and said, "Yes, I suppose. This is game set. For a vessel like Moriya-san to become Meso-Meso-san, it would be better if she never attained a post as one of the yokai eternally passed down in the school." I see. Allowing her the lowest seat among the school yokai is far too inappropriate. I think someone like yourself and your wickedness better fulfills the role, you see. If it's someone like you, even among the school yokai, you'll splendidly fill and protect that seat. If a human like yourself joins us in the lowest rank, even I'll have to be careful. I see. So this is a test that you school demons have made to decide who is more suitable to become Meso-Meso-san. How cliché. What the hell is going on here? I don't understand. Everything is so bizarre. That's right. We voted, but there are 3 votes for Marie and 3 votes have been cast for you. I abstained and made a different proposal. That the 2 parties themselves should fight out their differences, you see. Indeed. Basically, when you tossed your button in the infirmary, it was your invitation to this test. I see. But now it's been decided, right? That test about who will become Meso-Meso-san. Yeah, the decision has been made. I'm so very sorry. That we cannot welcome a wicked human like you. Eh? At that moment, Kanamori felt a huge surge of power twist up in his arms. In his surprise, he looked in front of him. Marie, whose eyes had already opened and rolled back and her head sputtered drool, and began to twist Kanamori's wrist with horrific power. That thick sound could have been the sound of Kanamori's wrist snapping, or perhaps the sound of the back of his hands being crushed. Let go! With a giggle, Higanbana responded, "Sorry, because I don't often get to meet such a wicked man like yourself. I'm truly sorry I couldn't welcome you to our class. What I wanted to test wasn't, you see, who was more vile, or who was more suitable yokai. It was who was more suitable to be Meso-Meso-san, you see. Kanamori, even though you said you wanted to become Meso-Meso-san, did you forget the Meso-Meso-san rules? Meso-Meso rules? Grah! Now both Marie's arms crushed the bones in Kanamori's hands, but they sought to wholly embrace him. But that embrace wasn't one of love. It was of a malicious embrace of death that sought to crush every bone in his body. Let go, Kanamori gave a scream as he cried while his ribs cracked. As if delighted from hearing the sound, Higanbana continued. That's right, the rules of Meso-Meso-san. That if you meet Meso-Meso-san, you must not speak with it. Oh, you must not see its true form. You broke those rules, therefore Marie wins. So, more and more, the sound of 2 small bones breaking in Kanamori's body began to leak out. Marie, do it. As Higanbana giggled, she pressured Marie to deliver the finishing blow. But Marie let the strength of one arm go. And her expression wasn't a terrifying visage with her eyes rolled back in her head, but it was Madie's usual expression. Thank you, Sensei. What Sensei said was very filthy and painful, but I think it's as you say. If I hadn't learned it from Sensei, I might not have understood my sin even in death. I'm grateful that you were able to teach me like this even after death. Thank you, Sensei. From the very beginning, when you protected me from those bullies, I loved you. Forgive me. And then came a strange noise. Compared to earlier sounds, they were like someone crumbling up a newspaper and violently tossing it in a garbage can. A crumpling noise. But this sound wasn't light like paper, and just listening to it was sickening, a repulsive sound. That was the sound of every bone in Kanamori's body beginning to be crushed to bits. There was no longer a painful voice leaking out. His mouth overflowed with streams of blood, and the sound that could have been heard gushing from there may have been Kanamori's dying agony that had been denied even being put into words. Or it could have been the heaving sound of everything from his lower intestines to all of his organs being squeezed out of him. One couldn't tell which. And then came the sound of the largest bones in his body folding with a crack. Then all that could be heard was the cries of insects in the night, and the two school yokai were alone. But what was up with that? Congratulations, Mesomesa-san, Madie. You have been chosen. Can you hear everyone's applause? No. Giggle, giggle, giggle. Even though everyone should have revealed themselves, they feel too important. They're all nothing but shy individuals, you see. If you don't attain a bit more power, then it might be difficult for you to perceive them. Do you think the school yokai and I can get along? Who knows? Maybe it'll be difficult. You couldn't even make human friends. Could you make friends with non-humans, I wonder? I'll give it my all. Because if I can't relive my life, then at the very least I want to correct my past mistakes in this new one. Madie's expression overflowed with more determination than any other face she had shown until today. There are a lot of dead and depraved children, but a dead and determined child, now that's unusual. Of course, Madie, you're an interesting girl. No, a weird girl. Google, google, giggle. Higanbana jumped over the railing, and then she took the shape of a human like the day they met in the library room. Everyone is going to want you to introduce yourself pretty soon. Also, I should probably direct you to our class. By class, could that be Classroom B? On the name tag on Higanbana's chest, the school year was blank, but the class name, B, was written there. That name tag that had once seemed blotted out by the rain. How was it now she could read it so clearly? Classroom B? You're wrong, it's Classroom 13. The numbers have gotten dirty. Sorry about that. Classroom 13? That kind of class doesn't exist anywhere in the school. And yet, there was no doubt that classroom was in the school. Probably in the old school building. Come, Mesomasa-san, Madie. Take the hand of the doll that dances, Higanbana. Higanbana slowly reached out her hand. After hesitating ever so slightly, Madie took her hand. It wasn't because she was scared. The job of a school yokai is tough, you know. We must surround ourselves in ill omens and wickedness as we dye the dark night even darker. Yes. And if the night was truly dark, only then will daylight brightly shine upon the school. If one wicked teacher is swallowed by the dark night, then in a day the school will become a better place, won't it? But congratulations. This was your first victory, right? You really strived for it, so be sure to keep a count, alright? Count? Count what? Giggle, giggle. The number of people you've cursed to death. This was your first, you see. No, I don't want to count something like that. Giggle, giggle, giggle. Well, that might be why you're interesting, Maddie. But with that kind of faint-heartedness, maybe you'll even be bullied in our class. If I'm bullied, then I'll ask my friends for help. Friends? Like who? Would Higanbana-san please, well, become my friend? This doll that dances, Higanbana, become your friend? Giggle, giggle. But I think I should wait a little longer when it comes to choosing your friends. But yeah, I think you should wait a little longer when... Okay. For a while, Higanbana, even though this was no laughing matter, split her sides with laughter. Gosh, she makes that face and it's scary as shit with this artwork. And when she was finally finished, she shrugged her shoulders. If Maddie is fine with that, then it's fine. If it was someone who knew the real me, then I wouldn't take up such a reckless proposal. What do you mean by that? Perhaps ignorance is bliss. Giggle, 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 google, google. Higanbana-san, you might seem cold-hearted, but well, I think you're a good person. Really? Yes. Does that bother you? Thanks. Eh? Higanbana let go of Maddie's hand and walked down the hallway alone. It's this way. Do you see? The hallway extends. It won't come out for humans and they can't see it. Do you see it? Yes. I can see it. The impossible hallway extended far away into darkness. When she was human, there would have been a wall there, but now the hallway stretched far into the distance. Then come. Following after Higanbana, Maddie entered the darkness. Alright, I'm actually gonna stop today. Yeah, perfect. Man, the story is getting so weird. I wonder if there's gonna be like a breakdown of all this that happened. If Kanamori died, or if Maddie died, what happened, etc., etc. Since this is basically like a mystery type thing. Well, I can't say it's a mystery type thing, but I don't know. It's kind of weird in that respect. I don't know if Ryokishi wants us to break down this story. Like, who did this? Who was the one who killed whoever? Etc. But I'm at the moment I'm really taking the story as it is, and it's pretty nice. It's pretty awesome. Kanamori made some very interesting, strong points about society, and he seems to be a reflection of how society is. He's a character that came from that type of lifestyle, and he actually makes some strong points. And while Maddie seems to be one of those characters that are introverted and to herself, also afraid and doesn't take that initial step. Kind of reminds me of someone. Yeah, it's very, very interesting how the characters are in this visual novel. Anyway, I hope the story gets even more interesting as we dive into it some more. But for today, I am done. So, I'll see you in the next part of part 3 for whoever's watching. Mainly you, Rasty. Yeah. Bye, and thank you.